so great to be back here at the greatest horror convention in the world, run by the one and only Elliot Brodsky, Monsterpalooza! Son of Monsterpalooza! And it's real fitting for me to be here today to host this Re-Animator Reunion, because the first horror film, the first film I ever saw at a screening when I joined Fangoria in 1985 was Re-Animator. They had a little showing at a Magno screening room on Broadway. My friend Bob was with me. He was my guest. David Gale was there and Brian Usner. It was a very small audience and it blew us away. We had never seen anything like it. It was one of the best horror films of all time, and it's only grown in prestige in recent years. So let's give it up for the genius that is Re-Animator. And before we bring up our killer assembly of guests, we're going to play a clip from the film to get you guys all in the mood for Re-Animator.
Of course he's dead. The dosage was too large.
You killed him? No, I did not.
I gave him life.
We have a special actor guest from the movie. He's never done a convention before. He was one of the main zombies of the film. Let's start off and bring Craig Reed to the stage. The genius who created so many of the memorable makeup effects and gore gags in the film is here. Let's give it up for John Nolan. Also worked on From Beyond and plenty more. And our actors are right behind this door. Yeah. The composer of Re-Animators here did music for countless Full Moon Empire films, tons of other horror films. Let's give it up for Richard Band. He played Dan Kane in the film. Bruce Abbott. Of course, she was Megan Halsey, Barbara Crampton. Nope, Barbara's powdering her nose, so we'll give you Herbert West, Jeffrey Combs.
It says color not correct. Don't worry.
That's just for you guys. They're going to see the good stuff right up here. Yeah. So while we're waiting for Barbara, I'm going to show you another clip from the film. This is one of my favorite scenes, so let's roll this one.
Hi. Can I help you? You're here about the pump? Huh. Yes. Didn't we meet this morning? You're,
West. Herbert West.
West. Excuse me, just...
Come in.
Thank you.
I startled you.
Yes, you did.
May I introduce my fiancée, Megan Halsey?
Miss Halsey.
Mr. West.
I'm afraid the place is still kind of a mess, Mr. West.
Oh. Herbert.
All right, without further ado, Barbara Crampton! Is this a great bunch or what? Yeah! So guys, hard to believe it's been what, 31 years now?
Ouch. Who's counting?
So what is it about Re-Animator that stood the test of time? We'll start with Craig, our featured zombie from the film.
Everything. What can I tell you? Oh,
Yeah, just use the mic. It's live.
yeah, just everything. The creativity, just the whole aesthetics, and the way everything ran, it was just marvelous. And the creativity of John and the whole cast, Barbara was just great with me, and it was my first horror film, so it's great.
And John?
Well, you know, I think that I would have to kind of turn to something Stuart said in one of the panels. And this was his first film. And he says, I thought every movie was this experience. Everybody just coming together and having my uncle's got a barn, great time, making something, everybody on the same page, everything moving forward, and that's what this film was. And then he goes, then I made another film.
Well, I think at least one of the elements is the fact that it truly mixed real horror with humor, and not in just like a ha-ha way. It was a whole, it invented a genre almost unto itself that has stood the test of time. I think that's one of the things at least.
I'll say something a little bit more too. I think that any great sort of anything that stands this long is a really happy accident in a way. It's impossible to conjure up all the elements that are going to make a film work beforehand. It just Stuart was visionary enough to pick people who were going to sell out for sure and knew exactly what their job was and what they were supposed to do. And we had 2 weeks rehearsal. And crazy as it sounds, big budget films don't have 2 weeks rehearsal. So it was a really cool thing from people with a theatrical background. So we were able to find a kind of musicality to it that most films, I think, don't. So that's mine.
You're right. It's
This is on.
that's really a key element. Stuart coming from the theater, he said, "I want to rehearse," and that meant that when we got on set, we weren't figuring it out.
Yeah.
We were kind of, we're playing that song now. We got that one. Okay, good, got it. So there wasn't a lot of time wasted with, gee, what are we going to do with this scene? But going back to your initial question here, Tony, I think all great movies, novels, everything boils down to plot and character. Character is plot. Who you are determines what you do, which is the action and the plot. And I think that in the writing and the editing of Re-Animator, you really got a very clear and universal story here that's driven by characters. Herbert wouldn't do what he did if he isn't Herbert. Dr. Hill wouldn't have done what he did unless it came from who he is, and it's putting those elements together. A lot of happy accidents, and it's not just with casting. It's how Mac Hallberg as the DP, the Richards' incredible soaring score that gives us a complete tone to how we approach what we're seeing. Big and small roles, everybody just playing their notes like an orchestra, and you can't plan that. It is so lucky. Our editor was was a stroke of luck. He doesn't get enough praise. Just how things are cut really determines drive, momentum. And so.
Yeah, I would echo what everybody else is saying, and you know, maybe add a couple of things. I think also because it was his first movie, there wasn't too many people looking over his shoulder and saying, "Oh, you should do this or you should do that." And you know, a lot of movies fail because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and this was definitely a movie that was Stuart's vision and Dennis's vision, and Stuart is a very hands-on director, knows exactly what he wants, and he's not afraid to tell us. And as these guys were saying, we rehearsed for 2 weeks, like every day. And I've never gotten that before or since, really. Maybe you'll do a read-through or something, but I think that really helped. And also, I mean, it has to be pointed out that, and you guys know, I mean, Jeffrey was just amazing in that character. It was just like, it's like one of the greatest horror movie villains of, you know, of all time. I mean, you know.
Thank you. I also remember like Stuart on set, like going, "I want the camera here," and you know, Mac Allward going, "You can't do that." Mac was Swedish, you know. Stuart go, "Yes, I can." He goes, "No, you're crossing the line, Stuart." Stuart go, "What? What do you mean crossing the line?" "Well, it's your editor will hate you." Stuart would be like, "No, it'll work." Mac would go, "No, it won't work." "Yes, it will." "No." And that was, imagine if Mac weren't there to go, "That will work." He would have gotten in the editing room and went, "Oh no, I'm crossing the line. I get it now." So another happy accident that you had someone with a lot of experience with a first-time visionary director, but who didn't quite understand the technical mathematics of editing.
Yeah, and Mac also was very much wanted to show what the horror was. So it was a bright movie. We see a lot of horror movies that are very dark, but you know, because this was a comedy, you know, a horror comedy, it was nice that we actually saw everything. It's really clear. It's right there. So I think the visuals of the movie were done very well as well.
I also think, though, that Bruce and I sort of subterfuge. Stuart actually approached this movie deadly serious. This is not a comedy, right? No, this is a serious story.
Yeah, is that new information for you guys, or were you aware of that? They're laughing, they don't know what to say.
And Bruce and I turned to each other and went, "There is a lot of blood in this movie. And the only way we're going to get through this is if we release the tension from all of this onslaught with a little humor." So we're constantly finding ways to just eject a little humor. Like it's not written in that very scene where she says, "I say I frightened you," and she said, "Yes, you did." There is no in the script. There is no written. So that's sort of me deciding there's a joke here, a little one, but there's a joke there to sort of relieve this tension, and like with the paper spike and the head, I mean, you all remember that? That's comedy 3, the 3s of comedy. And it was a happy accident. That happened to be on the set. That prop was there. It wasn't something that I asked for, but it solved a problem because the head really wouldn't sit up in the paper. It would like go, and then I went,
We've all tried this.
yes. And then I went, well, how am I gonna, oh, wait a minute, there's that. Well, the character would do that too, maybe. So that's where that comes from. Solve the problem. So, you know, we tried to find humor wherever we could. And I think it helped the movie.
John, you want to add something?
Well, you know, yes, Stuart treated things super, super seriously. I mean, he made us go and study autopsies. And he brought me in books that I'll never unsee some of the pictures for reference. But by the same token, the anatomical head, I had done this remarkably accurate anatomical head, and I'd actually done some stuff for medical schools and stuff, and this was really, really beautiful, and I was so proud of it. And Stuart comes in and goes, no. And I said, he goes, it's too good. He said, no, this particular thing has to be very plain, kind of a caricature. He goes, you've done some stage, right? So I think there was a little bit of, I think there was a little more there than maybe, because this is pre-production. He goes, did you ever do UNESCO? And I said, yeah, I did the Bald Soprano. Did you do UNESCO? Theater of the Absurd. He goes, yeah, make it plain. So, I mean, he knew that stupid thing coming around the corner and the ear falling off and stuff like that, it couldn't look, you know, it had to focus on the ear, and it just had to look dopey coming around the corner. And so.
But I remember that we were during Castle Freak, we were eating with Stuart, and he said, Re-Animator is not a funny movie. Do you remember that?
I do.
And I went, what?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of all this, because sometimes I don't know if he's just, you know, messing with us, or if, you know, yeah, it did. The comedy that was injected into the movie was not in the script originally. It just, there were moments of it, John, but it feels like it sort of happened on set. You guys did a lot more of it than was initially, you know, intentioned in the beginning. And then, you know, it did turn into something else. But he did go with it. I mean, he went with it, you know.
He had to have seen what we were doing.
Yeah, you couldn't miss it in dailies, right? I mean, you saw this stuff and you go, like, God, that's really funny.
Herbert, no, yes, it's dead twice. You know,
That's funny.
that's funny.
This was a 3-month battle of sorts between myself and Stuart and Brian.
With music.
With music,
Oh, yeah.
because initially Stuart and Brian wanted this to be a deadly, serious, horrifying film.
See? Yeah.
And I went to the first screening of it, of the first cut, not the very first cut, not the final. And
it was long, wasn't it?
It was so long, I actually, Stuart, he tells the story often how, you know, he kept looking over at me and my head was kind of down like this, and he thought, you know, maybe he's really coming up with some notes or contemplating it seriously and all this, and then he realized finally that I just nodded out. And it's this thing, I mean, it went on for, I don't know, 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Stuart's idea, first-time director, Stuart's idea of first cut was like every scene.
Like, yeah, everything. But
Everything.
But after that, and after it started getting whittled down to a reasonable length and it started getting to work, the battle began, and it took a long time for both Stuart and Brian to sort of come to the realization that if I were to handle this, that it could not possibly be handled as a totally serious horror film, that people would just they'd get up and walk out. It was so insane, it was so over the top, it was so bright that none of the horror was darkened and everything. It was all out there. It was
So
over
the
the top.
music leads everybody to know the tone of the piece.
And once the audience saw, I was convinced, once the audience saw that they could sit back and actually have a good time with it, that they didn't have to necessarily be horrified, that they could laugh at the horror, then I knew that we were on to the right track. But this was something that went way far back.
I remember when Mac first came on, because we had a DP for the first week, and everything was really dark, and so they kind of had to make a change. But I do remember like that first day, and Mac, you know, was looking through the viewfinder, and I just happened to be standing behind him. It was the basement scene, the cat scene. You know, we were shooting that, and he backed away from the camera, and was looking off into middle space, and he goes, I think this might be pretty good. I went, really? You think this? Yeah, Yes, I think so. So I mean, even he had sort of this instinct of what was happening. He had the experience to be able to tell that from something mediocre or not really air under his wings, you know?
So let's add something else into the mix here. Because Stewart was a theater director originally, and theater is big, right? And film is small. And I can remember my first job that I did on a soap opera was Days of Our Lives. I was super big on film because I didn't realize that the energy is the same, but the aperture through which it flows is smaller. And maybe Stewart didn't realize that also in the beginning because he was doing what he always did. On the stage, there was a lot of big stuff, and he did crazy stuff with the Organic Theater Company in Chicago. And then he did this movie, and this movie is big. It's big naturally, in tone and on the page and what Dennis wrote.
The characters are writ large.
Yeah, the characters are large. So I think it just happened, and we keep talking about this accident, happy accident, but all the elements were there. But I think it was great that it came from the theater because he infused that energy. That the Re-Animator has so much energy and so much drive to it, and finally they were able. Thank you for talking him into making it, an 84-minute movie rather than a 2.5-hour movie. But it became what it was because of all these cool elements that we all started from.
And I think also Re-Animator has a very unique quality. When you take something from the theater, let me say this: theater is participatory. You're on a stage and you have a relationship with an audience, so it's symbiotic. Film is passive. You observe. But one of the amazing things about Re-Animator is the way to see it is in a theater with a group of people. Because it's everybody, like theater, everybody is enjoying it and it becomes infectious, and that's an amazingly hard thing to do in film. Most of the time, that doesn't happen in a movie theater. It's
i.e. Rocky Horror Picture Show?
That kind of thing, exactly. It becomes an event.
Well, let's show another clip to illustrate some of the points you just brought up.
Okay, Tony.
Once the skull is plainly visible, you take the bone saw and you cut around the perimeter. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the human brain. Once the brain stem of an individual, I'm talking about the reticular activating system, heart regulation, respiratory center, once these activities cease, the brain can only survive an additional 6 to 12 minutes. 6 to 12 minutes. Until brain death brings about an irreversible conclusion.
Let me break the next pencil and then pull one of them. I got another. Now that's scripted. That's not something that happened on. And I do it 3 times. Again, snap,
Not funny.
snap, and then the third one I'm gonna do it again, and he cuts the. That can't not be intentional in the writing.
You bring up the interactivity and the fact that this is a movie that people respond to in an almost visceral way. When they did the premiere here on Hollywood Boulevard.
I remember.
Yeah. So we sat down there, and there were 3 sailors, and the sailors were in their dress whites, and they were walking down Hollywood Boulevard, saw a line, got in the line. They had no idea what they were walking into. and they sat right behind us. And let's just say I'll call it the double header seat. And these guys are going, oh, no, they would, oh, God, they're not, oh, yeah. And then I look back, and these guys are buried in each other like this, you know, and they're like that. And then, of course, they realize that everybody's kind of looking at them like, soldiers, huh? And there was kind of a moment, movie's going on, and they kind of like, all right, let's move on. Next.
Well, was there anything while you were shooting the film, of course, there's gruesome highlight after gruesome highlight in the movie where you stopped and said, there's no way they're getting away with this stuff. This is XXX, this is too gruesome. What are we doing?
I had a moment
What
like
are they
that.
thinking? What's doing thinking? Maybe we should start with you, Marvin.
Please.
Well, I'll just go back a little bit. When I auditioned for this role, I was in the second round of casting because the first girl that got the part, her mother read the script and said, no, you're not doing this. And so I came in and met these guys, and I didn't realize I was in the second round. I thought it was the first round, and they were there to see if they had chemistry, or to see if I had chemistry with them. And so I went into the reading, and I kept reading with them, and they kept having me sit down and saying, okay, do you want to read another scene? I was like, okay. And then I went in with them again. I'm like, ooh, these guys are pretty good. Ooh, maybe they're going to get the part too. I didn't know they already had the part. So it all worked out, and so I got the role. And I had read the script, and anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a shy person. And so it didn't bother me. I mean, nothing about, when I read the script, I did think it was funny. I thought everything was funny, and I thought that scene was kind of, that's kind of interesting. Okay, never quite done anything like that before. Although I did play the girl. I can't remember the girl's name in Equus. So I mean, I don't know. I just didn't. Nothing about it made me feel like, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't do that. I thought it was fun and funny, and I liked the character, and I just thought the movie was cool. So.
And you didn't show your mother the script?
No, she never saw the movie. I never let her watch the movie.
I mean, quite honestly, I was doing a play, casting director saw me. What if he hadn't gone to that play? You know, and
Anthony Barneo.
And he said, you know, you might be right for something I'm casting. Oh, cool. And so I didn't know what walked in. I didn't know who Lovecraft was. No clue. Stuart Gordon, young Stuart Gordon going, you know, this is based on Lovecraft. Yes!
One of my favorites.
Oh, wow. You know. But I honestly thought, I hadn't done very much film at all, and I just thought, this is kind of an interesting character. I will get 3 weeks in front of a camera on a set. I will learn some of the ropes, and nobody will see this bloody mess. And here we are, how many years later? 31. Shows you what I know.
Tony, I had just done a film with John Neal in Morocco, and I came back actually a little early, and one of the actresses there was round one. At round one.
Yeah. Oh.
And Laura said to me, she says, you know, there's this scene. And I said, oh yeah, that'll get cut. There's no way that's never gonna end up in an R-rated movie. Of course, I didn't know they weren't gonna rate the movie, but the bottom, I said, you know, sometimes they shoot stuff like that just to get it cut. And we actually did some of that stuff for From Beyond. But, you know, it's like, yeah, and then I came to set with 10 gallons of blood. That's a lot of blood. I'd never used 10 gallons of blood on anything. 33 gallons of blood later, Re-Animator was finished.
You guys would dress the set, and then Stuart would come in and go, no, give me that bucket. And just, now we're good.
And I would say, but it's not going to match for continuity, because, you know, he goes, well, he went home and washed up. And I said, is there a scene? Is that added? He goes, no, he went home and washed up. So his face doesn't have to have blood on it here, but we need more blood. You know, it's like, okay.
Speaking of blood, let's take a look at the Dean Halsey scene.
Yes.
Cover him up. Let's go. Let's go! All right.
If we're still there with you, you're in trouble, both of you!
It looks like you guys are getting pretty banged up in that scene. What do you remember, Bruce?
We did all that.
Did you go over the gurney like
I
that? Was
went
it?
over the freaking
Yes, beautiful. See, I was thrown against the wall. Listen, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double.
Peter Kent.
Peter Kent. And he was a bruiser, but he was also really skilled. I mean, he didn't hurt us. And we sort of approached it like a dance. You do this, and then I'll do that, and then I'll be here. And once you choreograph it, we literally choreographed it. It looks like chaos, but it's controlled.
Yeah, it's big dance, and it plays itself. You know, if you just play what's happening.
And the editing there, I mean, from what's inside to him and listening at the door, I mean, it's just all so beautifully set up editorially there that it's like you know what's happening. It's the geography is really right. So it's an amazing sequence there.
Yeah, Robert Sampson was not a little guy. He was much bigger than me. It's just flying.
Let's hear it for Robert Sampson and for David Gale. It breaks my heart that all these years David Gale was not around to be able to bask in all of this admiration for his work. You know, it's just.
What was it like working with David?
Well, he's a consummate gentleman. He was very sweet, wasn't he? And
Very, very kind to me, I have to say.
yeah, he was unselfish and worked the scene. You know, it was all about what do we do to make this scene work, and he was incredibly patient. He had to be with his head sitting under a table with his head with a hole in a pan, you know, with a bunch of blood around it.
Yeah, and he understood, you know, all that humor too. He brought a lot of humor to that character. He had some eye rolls in the movie, and you know, he just got it from the very beginning.
So it was only Stewart who didn't get it.
Here's what I say about that. I think that Stewart is a little more wily than we thought. I think Stewart understood, actually, that true successful humor must be played straight. Right. You have to believe in what you're saying, not wink and nod at the audience, but play it seriously. And the situation, if it's funny, it will get the laughs. But if you know you're funny and you're trying to get the laugh, it's not going to work. So I think he kept us in the serious mode because the tendency could have been for us to just be a little too cute.
Yeah, and all of his stuff is so outrageous anyway, right? I mean, really, all of his movies have some outrageous quality to them. So if you play into it too much, then it's going to be farcical, but it never veered into that, so.
You were talking about going over the top, and by the way, we have somebody here that's never been participant in any Re-Animator panel or anything like that before, Craig Reed, and I want to talk just real quickly about he was one of the featured corpses. He was actually the burn victim, and when I was talking to Stuart about this, I said, every time we have to add something onto the skin, it visually gets larger. With a burn thing, burns recede. I'm an ex-EMT. I actually, one of my very first cases that I did working in the ambulance was a severe burn, and everything's smaller, and it gets eaten up. I said, if we could get an amputee to play the part, I'm working with a prosthetist, and I can put together some parts that are pretty amazing. Now, I was actually working with Peyton L. Massey, one of the famous prosthetists, and I was working on a project for the CIA, and was able to get, certainly stuff that wasn't in this budget, and so they found Craig. Craig, you lost your arm at age 2, right?
20 months.
20 months, okay, a little less than 2. And I took castings of him. You want to bring that? Craig actually brought the original stump piece, which again has never been seen since the film. Yes, it's literally a body part back here.
You've been keeping it in a drawer all these years?
I hope you don't wear it on Saturday nights or anything.
Only on Sunday evening.
This is a system that at the time was brand new for the United States government, and this is a vinyl that does not attack the skin. And so I was actually able to take this over to Peyton, to Massey Prosthetics, and we made this piece, and it holds on using vacuum. All right, so it actually sticks in place. And then because that scene did not require a tremendous amount of continuity, and don't take this wrong, Craig, he's a hairy guy. And one of the things he said to me is, I do not want you to shave me. So I used gelatin. So I had to heat up and do the gelatin, and this whole thing was done. And that, of course, goes here. And then we were able to add a prosthetic arm to this. So when it got cut off, everything is actually smaller than the real arm, which it would be with a real burn victim. And it was so horrible. Stuart had also said, oh, this isn't pizza, this is Los Angeles pizza. I'm from Chicago. So he had pizza sent in from Chicago on the final night. And this was this night. And everybody said, Craig's disgusting, we don't want to be around him, And so I said, okay, I gotta have a little fun with this. I took pieces of the pizza and I stuck it on Craig. And I said, you walk in while they're eating their pizza and you go, really, guys? And you, okay, right?
That's right. And we got sick.
Well, yeah, the pizza made it pretty sick too. But and then I had to keep gelling him back in, putting him back in, into the gelatin to hold him back together again all night long. But yeah, it was over the top. I mean, there's a lot of big budget films that would never think of doing that. But yeah, sure, we'll get you a guy that doesn't have it. There you go.
Let's watch another clip.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I never get tired of watching Re-Animator.
12 cc's being administered, the dosage lessened in accordance to the freshness of the subject. Five seconds.
5 seconds.
Come on. I'll show you. 15 seconds. I'll show you. 17 seconds. Reanimation at 17 seconds. The eyes open. Dr. Halsey, you once did me a favor by letting me into your medical school. Doctor, I'll come back to life.
This is a great shot. This is Mac.
So when he grabs us, we actually had stepping stones of apple boxes so that, you know, he can't really lift us, so we're like moving up apple boxes. Remember?
Yep, totally remember.
You know, there's a lot of young filmmakers in the audience. Some of them are my very best friends. And, you know, making movies today, I have to say that, you know, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, is very careful about, you know, okay, you start at this time, you end at this time. We had 19 days to shoot this movie, and Stuart would not let us leave until he got what he wanted. And there was so much overtime on this movie. I got paid more in overtime in the movie than actually making the movie. And I think the last day, it was a 24-hour day. And it was like...
Yeah, but we didn't get paid very much in the beginning for this movie at all.
We didn't!
We didn't get rich off this.
No, we didn't. We did not get rich off this movie, but...
somebody did.
There was somebody did. That person's not here. Anyway, it's, you know, we don't get a lot of time to make our movies with all this blood and gore and special effects, and you need so much time. And Stuart just would not let anyone go home until he thought the day was done.
Did that create tension between you and Stuart, or you just went with the flow because you were newcomers?
You know, I remember at one point we were in a hallway. We had a hallway scene, and we rehearsed it, you know, in the 2 weeks before, and we ran out of time, as you can on a film, and so something had to go, and it was this scene in the hallway between the three of us, and Stuart, in his obstinacy, said, "We'll get it in one. We're going to shoot this scene in one, no coverage. So let's block it out," and it was torturous. It was a hideous, like, you know, I say something, and then I move here, and then Barbara goes here, and then
I exit the frame, and then I
you come back in, and
yeah.
it was like, this is
Yeah,
hell.
where is that scene? Which?
Oh, it's probably in, like, you know, extended cut version or something. Hey, you know what? It might be in that R-rated version. They might have stuck it back in there.
Is it not in the finished film?
No, it's not in the, thank God, it's not in the finished film. But it just didn't work. But my God, Stuart was gonna, like, in the last 20 minutes of the day, he was gonna, like, get something on them. So that sort of hurt.
The R version, is that like the 31-minute one?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there was so much extra footage shot in the movie, like you were saying before, it was like 2.5 hour cut at first.
Right.
Is there anything that didn't make the film that you wish did? Any of you?
No, I'll tell you, there's one thing that I'm glad did not make the film, because I thought it undercut my character. There was a scene where Dan comes into my room, and I'm shooting up.
Yeah.
I'm shooting the Re-Animator juice into myself, you know. And I didn't really agree with that, because I didn't think, I thought Herbert lost power if he was using the juice in order to be as inspired as he was. So I just thought that was a wrong note, but we shot it, and in that R-rated version, it's in there. But I don't like it, because I don't think I think it undercuts his genius, you know, that he needed something in order to do it, and I'm glad that's gone.
Well, when I asked Brian User when he told me he was going to do the sequel, Bride of Re-Animator, I said, well, how are you going to bring back Herbert West? He died in the film. And he said, well, he's been shooting up that Re-Animator fluid for years.
Well, did I die? All I did was disappear into some smoke. So, yeah.
Hey, would you guys like to ask some questions of our incredible panel here? Oh, we'll start with this guy right in the front.
Yes, I have a question for Jeffrey and Barbara Crompton. What was like working with Stuart Gordon on Far Beyond?
Could you hear the question in the back? Do you want me to repeat it?
What was it like working with Stuart, for Barbara and I, on From Beyond?
Yeah, well, it was amazing. You know, the budget for Re-Animator was pretty low, but because it did so well, we got 5 or 6 times the amount to do From Beyond, and you know, we felt like movie stars at that point. And then they flew us to Italy to do the movie. It was the first time that I'd ever been there and out of the country, and shooting at the old Dino De Laurentiis studios. It was all quite exotic, and you know, we loved our script for it, and we just had an amazing time. And you know, this was another movie where, you know, we're talking about the humor and, you know, the accidents of, you know, the tone of the movie and how Re-Animator came out. Well, on From Beyond, he really wanted to make a serious horror film. So From Beyond has a different tone, and you know, that just came because he didn't want to repeat himself. It was fantastic. I mean, we did have a shorthand by then, and we knew each other pretty well, and I think we had an amazing time.
Yeah, we did. I do remember Stuart really being intent on being serious. Like it, you know, humor was far down the line. And I also say From Beyond is incredibly successful at capturing the mystique of Lovecraft. Re-Animator, even Lovecraft wasn't particularly fond of Re-Animator. It was kind of a knockoff for him, make a little money. It was a serial novel story, whatever. But it was really true to the spirit of Lovecraft, I thought. And you know, shooting where we shot was great. My makeup was really daily an awful experience. But you know, I remember one time speaking of grossing out the crew, I would eat in my dressing room by myself because I was so hideous. And I remember one day at lunch, I walked out into the hallway, and it just so happened that they were shooting an Italian commercial with a lot of little kids with little mushrooms on their heads, and they were playing in the hallway, and then I walked out, and they're still traumatized to this day, I'm sure. I've never felt so Quasimodo hideous in my life. Wait, come back! It's makeup! Whoa! The mothers were like, oh, so.
Can I talk real quick about Ken Foray?
Ken Foray, yeah.
So, you know, this goes beyond, by the way, I look at From Beyond as kind of the real sequel to Re-Animator, because it's like, let's get the whole team back. And so, Ken Foray, Bubba, he likes to show up and pick on Jeffrey while Jeffrey's getting all makeup, make fun of him, all this sort of stuff. So the day comes, and Jeffrey was like, he said, you wait, I've read the script. And the day comes, and we have taken an oval hole, and we've cut it up into the attic sequence. We're in a swimming pool below, up on scaffolding. I have got Ken, the body part of Ken. I have got Ken basically on a chair, leaned back, lifted up with apple boxes, with just his head and shoulders stuck up onto the stage up above, and the Ken Foray body piece is attached to him up there with all of the cables and stuff. So he's, you know, this is the scene where he's been eaten by all the bugs, and he's lying there. This Bubba's death scene, and he's lying there, and all the, you know, and his legs and arms go down and all that. But only this much of Ken Foray is up above, and I hear this voice, and it's Jeffrey's voice. And from up above I hear, "This is your day." And he says, "You look kind of like a football, just waiting to be kicked." And Ken goes, "You, wouldn't you? No, you didn't." And he just freaked him out. And then at this moment,
He's trapped.
It was lunchtime, and somebody hadn't told some of the crew that we were going to actually shoot into lunch for this one sequence because we got a guy's head stuck through this. Now, anyhow, so they shut the 440 bus on the stage, and all the lights, the power went out, pitch black. You couldn't. I mean, we're down underneath where couldn't see your hands. And Ken Foray goes, "Ah!" and then he said words that I won't repeat, but it came up with basically, "Somebody turn the lights back on," and so so Jeff got him back.
Yeah. Sorry, Ken. Lunch.
Question in the front.
Yeah, I love all the movies, but the thing is, I think this worked with the humor, and obviously Mr. Vance's contribution, forcing them to change the music was huge. But From Beyond was good, but I don't think it worked as well because it was less humor. And then Castle Freak didn't have near the following, and I think it's because Stewart got his way and squoze the humor out, and I think that's exactly what made it less. Is that I guess my opinion?
Well, every movie has its own spirit and tone, and I don't think that humor fits in Castle Freak. It's a very melancholy,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
tragic, broken souls kind of
Shakespeare.
exploration of damaged goods, not only for the creature but for me and our family, and it's a completely different package. And humor.
I think it really is apples and oranges. If I can't see, I would agree earlier with what Jeffrey said, that From Beyond really is more Lovecraftian than
There's not a lot of humor in
Re-Animator.
Lovecraft.
Yeah, Re-Animator was, you know, a pleasant accident and fortune of sorts. It wasn't real Lovecraftian. Lovecraftian stuff is really pretty damn dark. You know, it really is. And you can't really repeat that kind of humor, or if you really think about From Beyond, I mean, it was a very atmospheric type of movie. You know, it wasn't
Again,
designed that way.
The unsung hero of From Beyond again is Mac Wahlberg.
Absolutely.
The lighting and the cinematography in that movie is just surreal, and it's like psychedelic almost. Multiple colors, turquoise and red, and it's just vibrant. And you know, all of the lab stuff, the autopsy room in Re-Animator. I'll never forget this. I walked in and Mac lit that all with fluorescent lights. Remember that? Everything else in that movie is shot with traditional lights and filters, but all of the little autopsy stuff, it was fluorescent, and it gives it this icky, sickly, green, antiseptic kind of harshness that's so fitting.
And when we were first setting that up, Stewart's input was, this doesn't look scary, this looks antiseptic, looks like it's surgery. And Matt goes, yeah, don't worry, Stuart. We have not brought in the Frankenstein lights yet, so, you know, everything will be wonderful. You'll love this.
We have a question from Bill Butler, who worked on From Beyond.
Hello, I want to ask the
Hey, Bill.
performers.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. I want to ask the performers, what was your, if you can remember, your favorite scene or your favorite day on Re-Animator?
Favorite scene on Re-Animator, favorite day?
My favorite scene is the chasing the cat in the basement. Now the reason is because the light is swinging. That's just so fucking inspired on Mac's part. Somebody hit that light so it just can constantly.
We hit the light throwing the cat.
We hit the light throwing the cat indoors. But it's also because Bruce and I, let me tell you about that scene. There is no cat. I'm serious. There's no cat in that fucking scene. There's lighting, there's editing, there's acting, reacting. We choreographed specifically where that cat is and when. You get the bat, I get the croquet mallet. Oh, he's over there. Hit the gas can. That'll make a good noise. We choreographed that out. Acting is believing and illusion, and you think with sound and music and editing and what we're reacting to that there's a cat in that room. There's no cat. Never was, never was. And that's the magic of film to me, and that's why that's my favorite scene. There is no cat.
Yeah, for me it was the scene before the scene. So it was, you know, I really loved my time with you, Bruce, on the set, and I, you know, really, I had never really met Bruce before when we worked on the movie, but we, you know, we had a really nice relationship on the set as actors, and I just really cared for you, and, you know, I think it was sweet, and so that was my whole character. I loved him, and I didn't want him to get in trouble, and I was trying to help him and save him from the evil Jeffrey
No,
Combs.
not evil, not evil. The work is very important.
Yeah, but you know, everything goes south for Meg and for Dan, and you know, there's that scene where we're just, you know, you should go away and you should do whatever, and then, you know, he comes back and I say, I wanted to hate you, I wanted so much to hate you. For me, that was my big scene and what meant the most to me in the movie and my relationship with you, that, you know, no matter what you did, I still love you, and, you know, maybe it's going to be okay, maybe we can still be together, and, you know, that was meaningful to me and my character. And then, of course, my father comes in and picks me up and drags me away, and that's the end of it. But, you know, I like that scene with you.
What was your favorite scene?
God, you know, I'm like killing myself to think of it. I feel so torn right now. Jeff's easily threatened, so I got it. I would have to say it was such a great joy to work with both Barbara and Jeff that I don't really have a favorite. I so enjoyed the energy of it. I so enjoyed the detail of it. They're both kind of meticulous actors. They have the most, you know, my whole performance is in everybody else's eyes. I'm the...
Bruce, you have the hard role, and you soared in that role because you're the guy who's going, no! And I'm the guy going, yes!
I can't tell you how many times I say Herbert no in this movie. It's gotta be 27 million. It's like, could you guys write me just something else? But you know, my whole performance is all about what I saw in these two. Because he's the audience, right? Dan's you guys.
Dan
right?
is every man.
Dan experiences what hopefully you guys experience. So I didn't have a favorite. I just loved working with them. We're all super tight because, you know, that kind of experience is transcendent.
One of my most favorite moments in the whole thing is your scene with Robert Sampson when he's been twisted by Hill and you go see him and he says, you know, I'm kicking you out of...
Yeah.
And you just have this, but I'll lose my scholarship. And it's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Well, he's the innocent, right? I mean, in all of this, and Meg, of course, too. But you know, he's like, hopefully, your experience.
I do love that you have a Talking Heads poster in your movie. I don't think you can get away with that these days. They go, hey, licensing, blah, blah, blah. Too late.
Well, let's close with another favorite scene from Re-Animator.